guys really are worthless, aren't you? And that's why I put you on the fourth line.
Around 45 million American children play sports every year.
But by the time that they're 15, 36 million of them will have quit.
And that's 80%. And many of these examples come from poor coaching.
Sports come with many benefits for a player's physical and emotional health. This means that when kids don't play sports, there can be negative physical and emotional effects on them.
From our research, we know that a motivational coach is key to making the game fun for players and help kids stay in their sports. But before we get into the making of a positive coach, let's focus on the big question. Why do kids quit sports in the first place? We know that most kids quit because they have had bad coaches, too much pressure, or the feeling that they're not good enough.
Most of the time, the feeling of pressure or that they are not good enough comes from two of the most important people in their athletic life, their coaches and their parents.
We sent a survey to students 6th through 8th grade here at the middle school. In the survey, we asked about the students' background in athletics, whether the person plays any sports, if they have quit any sports, and why. The results we found align with the data we gathered through our research.
Out of 204 students, over 94% of those students play a sport.
Now here's the alarming data. 78% of the people who replied to the survey answered that they have quit at least one sport. This is very close to the data we introduced earlier that states 80% of kids quit one sport by the end of middle school.
That puts the chances of all three of us quitting our sport at 50%. And the odds for at least one of us quitting is a little over 99%. We also collected data from students here at the middle school of why they quit their sport.
From the survey, we gathered that around 53% of the athletes quit their sport because they have experienced bad coaching.
And about 20% of the athletes said that they quit because they had too much pressure to perform well. This includes pressure from coaches, parents, and even other teammates.
This data shows that most of the kids quit because of pressure from parents and or poor coaching. Just by correcting the amount and the way a coach or a parent puts pressure on their athletes, we can decrease that number.
Now you might be thinking, why does this matter? So what if kids are quitting sports?
Playing sports can reduce the risk of health complications such as obesity, diabetes, and heart disease.
According to the CDC, over 9 million American children are above the obesity line.
Not only does playing sports fight obesity, but it also helps with life skills such as teamwork, discipline, leadership, and responsibility.
Sports also nurture a competitive attitude and help teach kids resilience to get back up after they fail.
We interviewed Carrie Ruckle from an organization called PCA, or Positive Coaching Alliance. Their motto is better athletes, better people.
And good coaches will create better athletes, therefore better people. If we follow this motto, we can improve players, not just as athletes.
We can keep players in the game and hopefully reduce that 80%.
According to David Bornstein, an author from the New York Times and parent of a young athlete, about 2.5 million adults are coaching voluntarily in the U.S.
But less than 10% of them attend any sort of workshops or receive any kind of training. You might be asking, are workshops really that effective?
There was a research study conducted in 2007 by Ronald E. Smith and Frank Small, both professors in the psychology department at the University of Washington. In this study, 20 youth basketball coaches participated in an hour-long motivational climate workshop prior to their season. In the training sessions, coaches were taught behavioral guidelines and instructions to create a good environment for the athletes.
Another group of coaches did not receive any workshops or training. During the season, anxiety over the players was closely monitored.
From watching the levels of anxiety of the athletes, it was found that the players whom coaches had attended the workshops prior to the season had shown lower levels of anxiety throughout the season.
The players whose coaches had not attended any training or workshops had shown a big increase in their level of anxiety.
This shows that when coaches attend something as short and simple as an hour-long workshop, there is a better experience for an entire team.
So, the way to reducing the number of athletes who quit could be as easy as coaches being a little better trained.
The main thing that coaches need to know is that it is necessary for different players to have different coaching techniques, but all players should be held to the same standard.
We also interviewed Lee J. Mirasolo, assistant coach of the Harvard women's hockey team.
We asked her what her opinions were on positive coaching, what it looks like, and how it influences the athletes. One question was, do you think coaches should coach different players differently?
To which Coach Mirasolo replied, I hold all players to the same standard, but I don't paint them all with a broad brush.
To us, this means that all players should aim towards the same goals that the coaches set, but the way to approach these goals are different for every athlete.
players benefit from a more personal style of coaching, one-on-one constructive criticism, but some don't, and no one likes to be embarrassed in front of the whole team.
This has happened to all three of us, and trust us, it doesn't feel good.
And this is not usually a coach's intention, but it comes across as harsh and demotivating.
Can you remember this kind of feeling that you might have had? It's probably something that you don't want to remember.
It is up to a coach to figure out what's going to work best for the team and specific players, which most likely can be figured out through trial and error.
The bottom line is, enthusiasm for the game comes before winning. Coaches need to be flexible in their approach to their teams.
Coaches should know whether their techniques are working on the team, and if not, be willing to use a different strategy.
Coach Mirasolo has new athletes coming in every year. She has to be flexible and use a less broad brush for individual players.
Coaches have to adjust to these new groups every year, since not every player responds the same way to coaching, and team environments can change with just one or two different players. Sports are a fun way to keep kids active and learning important life skills that will benefit them as they grow up and mature in sports.
But millions of kids quit sports every year because of poor coaching. We need to find a way to improve these coaches because, in reality, the kids are the ones getting hurt by these coaches.
So how can we help these kids?
There isn't one specific way to stop kids from quitting, and they don't all generate from coaching. But one thing we can improve is the type of coaching these athletes receive.
Something as simple as an hour-long workshop can help thousands of kids and coaches, and sometimes that is all it takes.
We all play hockey together, and we can agree that a positive coach can change your experience of the game.
We've had some bad coaches, but we've also had a lot of good coaches. Sports have brought us some of the most fun and memorable times of our lives, and we have our coaches to thank for that.
But many kids are not so lucky. Many receive poor coaching, and they don't get the same experience, and usually end up losing interest, eventually leading them to quit.
We need to create a better environment for athletes.
We want to keep kids playing the game that they love.
Sports don't just affect the athletic side of kids.
It'll affect them outside of sports too.
And like PCA's motto, better athletes, better people.
Alright, does anyone have any questions?
I'm just curious if any of the three of you have ever quit a sport, and if so, why? Was it due to, and what could they have done differently?
Well, when I was little, I quit swimming, and I wouldn't like completely blame it on coaches, but a small reason was for me quitting was because of the coach, and I don't know, if they were just a little more positive, because I didn't take it like as my most serious sport, so if they were just more positive and like listened to me about how I cared about it and what I wanted to do.
I used to take soccer really seriously when I was younger, but as I got older, I ended up quitting like 2 years ago, and like Ellie said, I can't just place all the blame on my coach, but it wasn't the best environment for me, and I think it was a good decision for me to quit.
Why'd you choose this topic?
Well, we all play sports, and we have most definitely experienced bad coaching, and we just wanted to share with everyone why we thought it was important.
So in your survey, I think to Blake students, one of the reasons that your classmates gave was, that didn't involve coaches was like other teammates giving them a hard time, is that right? Did I hear that
I think it
correctly?
was pressure and
Pressure from other
yes,
teammates.
and
yeah.
we included like both pressure from parents and from other teammates.
Okay, so I was just curious if, in your own experience, to what extent do you think your coaches might have been aware of that?
Well, coaches usually, a lot of times it does go unnoticed, like when teammates are, sometimes they'll laugh on the team's back for them being bad, and a lot of times it does go unnoticed. But I think coaches can play a little bit of a role if they do agree sometimes with what the people are saying about the kid being bad.
And in our pretty serious like U10 careers, we had some coaches. We all played at Minnesota, and we had some coaches who would only kind of focus on winning, even though we were like 10 years old. But they're just more positive and more attentive to what we wanted to do.